In Israel, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has declared his intention to annex parts of the occupied West Bank and fulfill an election promise. In response, the Palestinian Authority has declared it's ending all current agreements with Israel and the United States, including security arrangements. I sat down with the Secretary General of the Palestinian Liberation Organization, Saeb, Erekat, to discuss the Palestinians' perspective on the annexation plan. Mr. Erakat, thank you very much for being with us. We know that you have a busy schedule, and we know the Palestinian Authority declared that they are ending all agreements and all understandings signed with Israel and the United States. I want to ask your personal opinion. Do you think that annexation really is on the way? Do you think that annexation will happen?
I think the plan actually was officially ratified and sanctioned by President Trump with Mr. Netanyahu, and they both introduced it officially on January 28, 2020, in the so-called Prosperity and Peace Plan, the deal of the century. And then when Gantz and Netanyahu signed the agreement, the coalition agreement on 20th of April, Article 29th of the agreement specified that the only ideological theme in this coalition agreement is the annexation, and they will move with it, yes.
So what should we expect from now on? Do you think that we won't see any security cooperation between Palestinians and Israelis in the occupied West Bank?
When the Israelis announce annexation, it means they are abandoning and revoking and destroying all agreements signed. Because the conceptual framework of the agreement between us and the Israelis is that there were 6 issues: Jerusalem, borders, settlement, refugees, water, security, that should be negotiated between the two sides, and no side should take any steps that may preempt or prejudge these issues. That's the basic concept for the whole contract between Palestine Liberation Organization and Israel. Now, when President Trump and Mr. Netanyahu come out with a plan dictating the results of Jerusalem being Israel's capital, dictating the results that the borders between the River Jordan and to the Mediterranean is going to be under Israel's sovereignty, and Israel's sovereignty and security, and that they will annex settlements, the Jordan Valley, the Dead Sea, and the western borders, it means that they are taking the train off the track, and they're trying to build another track. Instead of negotiations, instead of international law, agreement signed, they're going on a track of dictations. We are no longer obliged to any of our commitments in the agreement signed, including the security cooperation with Israel and with the United States.
So you also said that from now on you are transferring all the burdens of the Palestinian people and their property to Israel as an occupying power, referencing 4th Geneva Convention of 1949. So when we look at the situation, what is the status, what is the legal status of the Palestinian Authority from now on?
So the mere fact that they will move in the annexation, I'm sure the next step in their plan, which is already written with Netanyahu, is to start a military attack against the Palestinian Authority to destroy the Palestinian Authority. If the Palestinian Authority is destroyed by the Israelis, they will have to shoulder the responsibilities in accordance with the 4th Geneva Convention of the Palestinians, because the whole world is deaf, blind, silent, okay? Yes, we hear condemnation, we hear statements, we hear things like this happening, but when it comes to Israel, everybody, business as usual. Business as usual. And as far as we're concerned as Palestinians, we want peace, we agree to the two-state solution, we agree to international law, but this plan of Netanyahu and Gantz and Trump is making us 4th-class citizens. They're imposing on us to be slaves of Israel.
Are you expecting any hot reaction, criticism from Arab countries, Gulf countries, to this possible annexation?
So the question to the Arab decision makers and to Muslim decision makers, if Europe is telling Israel now, if you take these steps, there will be consequences. Except for Austria and Hungary, 25 European countries are telling Israel, if you take this annexation, there will be consequences. Now, there are relations between certain Arab countries and Muslim countries and Israel. Why can't these countries meet and tell Israel, if you do this step, we will take our ambassadors out, we will have no relations with you, because what you're doing is destabilizing the security of all our countries as Arab and Muslim.
Mr. Erekat, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.